Will the felon and Stephen Miller try to end habeas corpus? Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First off, a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel, to everybody who likes, watches, comments, and shares the videos. If you've donated money to the channel through the super thanks, buy me a coffee, Venmo, huge thank you. So it's been in the news. Stephen Miller in particular has been talking about ending habeas corpus, which means ending the right to challenge your detention. The idea behind this is that the number of undocumented people in the country constitute an invasion. And really, that's the only way legally, according to the Constitution, that an administration could put an end to habeas corpus. Right? They could detain people. People couldn't challenge their detention until after the invasion was under control. So this has been challenged a few times. Well, not exactly like this, but it's it's come up before whether people in the country legally or not legally have constitutional rights, and the courts have always said they do. So it will be curious whether they try this. So let's just ask that question first, and then we'll see what'll happen if they do. So I think we'll start with the Rider Waite Tarot. Will Trump, the felon, Stephen Miller. Essentially, will Stephen Miller talk the felon into doing this? The felon, at this point, I don't think is um, really caring how things are done from a legal standpoint. Like, I think I said this in a reading a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that as these court challenges strike down his ability to do things, he's going to tell people to find alternative methods, but there really isn't any. But this would be one, right? This would take the Mr. Garcia case and say, well, he can't challenge his detention, and therefore everything's null and void because the country apparently is under an invasion, which seems like a pretty big stretch, but will they try it? That's all we want to know right now. And then we'll ask about whether it'll work. Will they try it? They're definitely thinking about it. In the water, there's a pendulum and it's just going back and forth and back and forth. And I think that is saying is they're undecided at this point, and they're worried about the blowback, not from the courts. Look at the Queen of Cups. It's a yes card. We get a surprising new beginning in the energy around, and a message coming forward in the upper right. We'll have to pull a few more cards before we know what that card means. Confinement, detention in the environment around. Okay. That's consistent with the question, so that's just kind of validation. At the center of the reading is the Magician. This is that Elon Musk, Stephen Miller type energy, that dark energy that doesn't really care how things are done. They want things done. And we get pausing and suspension. I think that's our answer there. The Hanged Man. So pausing and suspending habeas corpus. I mean, they can't just get rid of it, right? It could only be temporary if they do it. The Queen of Swords, logical thinking. Yeah, the Ten of Swords, complete and utter downfall in the environment around. And here's the card for the felon, the King of Pentacles. So people are pleading, making their case, but all those pleas and making the cases as being translated, transferred, transcribed, um, pushed through an intermediary like Stephen Miller before it gets to the felon. So once it's presented to the felon, it's presented through the lens of Stephen Miller, and people like that. But these people, oops, switch the cards. These people that are starting with the messages are like the White House counsel, people in the DOJ's office. And I think they're pretty strongly saying, don't do this, it's not going to work. But things are being transmitted through an intermediary before they get to the felon. So logic, then gets transformed, and then we get a message coming forward. So I think we'll see more discussion of this. The hanged man in particular concerns me because it's pausing and suspending, which kind of is what they're talking about doing. And also talking about detention. So the cards seem to really be on point. It would be a surprising new beginning. And perhaps this is for the next question. I do think it would be their downfall, though. In particular, Stephen Miller, who I've always seen disappearing later on. I've never seen him being around much past the felon. So will they do it? Let's look at the shadow cards. Juggling, they're thinking about it. Some people think they have the strength to do it. Some people, or the power to do it. Some people think they don't. It's a crossroads. The question is, will they be left out in the cold by the voters if they do it? What will the voters think? Because inevitably, some people are going to get wrapped up into this that are here in the country legally, or citizens or whatever. As soon as you start taking away due process rights and you can't challenge a detention, there's going to be all sorts of questions appearing. I don't know. I think it's about 50-50 on whether they do or don't. I don't think it's been decided. That's why I don't think there's an answer. But they're definitely thinking about it, which is scary. But let's suppose they do. If they suspend habeas corpus and people can't challenge their detentions, what will the courts say? Will the courts reinstate the right to challenge your detention? I think other countries would start to again list the US on the states that are violating human rights. The United States would start to be put on lists with like China and Russia. Even if they just try it, will the courts strike it down? I feel pretty confident that the courts will not let them do this. It might go through some legal wrangling, though. That's the part that worries me, because if it's in limbo for 3-5 days, even, that's a lot of people that they can hurt. Yeah. So we get the double card toxicity. That's how it'll be perceived, is that it's misinformation. There's no invasion, right? That's just MAGA talking points. Again, complete and utter downfall. If they do it, they'll lose in court. There'll be a lot of fighting. It's in the upper right. You'll have to kind of see the context of that. Again, pausing and suspension. I do think it'd take a while for the courts to get everything done, although I think they would try to act very quickly, but then you never know if they go to a Texas appeals court, whether they put a pause to the lower court's ruling, and it becomes a game of time. We already saw that the Supreme Court doesn't trust certain members of its own body to write a dissent in time. So time will be of the essence. At the center of the reading is circles of support and celebration. 3, that's usually how many people are on an appeals panel. And justice. So yeah, no, they're not going to be able to get away with it. Yeah, the guardrails are in place. Messages about money, instability. So all these lies about an invasion, they're going to be put to stop probably by 3 justices on a panel. That'll be the end of it. I don't think it'll even make it to the Supreme Court because it's such a ridiculous case. Although it might. And stability will be reinstated. The guardrails in place are the judiciary. The 9 of Wands, the guardrails are the judiciary. This will lead to further fighting, though, amongst the administration on how they can basically ethnically cleanse the US. That's the way, that's, I know, a loaded word, but it's kind of really what they're trying to do. So, but I think it leads to their downfall if they try it. People will really start to question what they're doing. Disapproval on immigration has been ticking up, as has the economy. Justice will prevail, and the message will get out there that they just don't care, and that it's really maybe a distraction from the economic news that we're about to receive. Yeah, the trafficking humans leads them to be wounded in battle. So in other words, they're not successful in the courts. Does that mean that they don't continue? They might, because if one plan doesn't work, try another. The 8 of Pentacles. It's possible that that they defy some court orders, or they do it in a real fringe way to where it's harder to see. But I think the courts are going to really crack down here soon. Okay, just one last question. Does this, if this happens, does this further erode support for the felon? If they do this, does this erode support for the felon? Everybody thinks that people don't, everybody thinks that the MAGA voters hate people here illegally, and I think they do in the context of a generalization. However, if it is your neighbor, it's a different kind of story. It's like seeing something in practice is different than thinking about it in theory, is what I'm getting. And I think that's why, even amongst some of the hardcore supporters, this is maybe a step too far, not being able to challenge your detention. Yeah. I don't think it makes a huge difference in his support because I think it's already dropping regardless. But yeah, the people that are drinking the Kool-Aid, the 4 cups, they're going to be behind him no matter what. But a lot of people are going to feel betrayed, left out in the cold, the 5 of Pentacles. And people are going to see this for what it is it's a message of hate, a message of distraction. They realized that the seed was planted, but they never really, like, a lot of people really didn't think he was going to do what he was saying on the campaign trail, which is utterly crazy, but that is the truth. Yeah, it's inevitable that his support wanes, the 3 of Wands. And the King of Swords, logic returning is what people want. They want the truth. And the truth is, people know that we're not in an invasion sort of situation where there's an immediate threat. but that's the argument they're going to make, or that's the only legal argument I can think of. Again, guardrails, the Nine of Wands. I've always said this card will pop up a lot over the next several months. The courts are the guardrails at this point. Juggling too much. And then we get the Two of Cups partnerships, but here they're kind of separated a little bit. So the people that drink the Kool-Aid, it's inevitable that they stay in support of him, although I think the support wanes slightly. The guardrails that are in place are inevitable, which will send the message to the people of what exactly they're doing and the taxpayer dollars they're spending on it, which is going to become more and more pivotal as they try to give big tax cuts. People already feel left out in the cold and poor. People already feel like they're juggling too much, that there's too much going on right now. And people don't feel like they have the truth yet, the King of Swords. And people just want to be able to move on with life. They're ready for the next step. They're ready for him to be gone. People do not want the trafficking. People just don't support that. People see families running, being scared. They don't see undocumented people as a threat. The vast majority of Americans do not see it that way. And I don't think MAGA sees it that way in the reality. Now, in the abstract, they do. But if it's their neighbor or someone that they know, that they were just unaware of their legal status in the country, I think it's different. I think they would see it differently. All right. So will they suspend habeas corpus? I don't think it's 50-50. If they do, the courts will make them put it back. So the only question is how long that takes. That's the concerning part. And then if they do it, his support further wanes. So I don't know, 50-50 on whether they do it. All right, thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.